Guys, there's a bit of FOMO right now with Bitcoin because it's risen to new highs. Not an all-time high yet, but new local highs. We're also taking a closer look because what just happened with the daily candles is that they've closed at a level higher than ever before in history. The last weekly candle also closed at a high that we've never seen before. And you can actually see here that this exact momentum we're experiencing now is just like it was here. After this breakout from the downtrend, there was an upward trend channel, another upward trend channel, a bit of a rising bed, in this case, another breakout. And now we're experiencing something similar again. Despite all that, I said in yesterday's video that I'm short on Bitcoin. Am I still? Before going to bed, I set my stop loss for my Ethereum position in profit. So that got hit as well. Since Ethereum kept rising, my Bitcoin position is still open. But we can also currently see that Bitcoin is facing a bit of rejection. I was of the opinion that, okay, we have a wonderful upward trend here as resistance, and at the moment we haven't managed to break through it. At this point in time, it's at least a small rejection, because we were briefly at almost $68,000, which is quite a lot for Bitcoin. But what happens next? Will we actually manage to break further upwards through the ascending trend channel to create a new breakout like we saw here or here? Or are we actually heading for a correction? Because as we've been saying in the last videos, there's still quite a lot going on around the $100,000 mark. And you really shouldn't lose sight of that, no matter how bullish we are right now. With Ethereum as well, even though it took longer, we eventually reached that price range. The only question is, of course it's possible. And that would be the optimal scenario. We break out upwards here and continue with a parabolic run. Let's also take a look at the next price target, because there isn't much above that. And if we actually break the all-time high, we really don't have any support or resistance zones to indicate where things might stop. But I'll show you in the video where the next price target would be, because there's a tool we can use for that. In the meantime, BlackRock is still accumulating. They now have $72 billion in total invested. If we look at the fund, just yesterday another $287 million came in from BlackRock alone. But overall, if we look at it, there were $329 million in total in Bitcoin. What BlackRock also did, I saw in the inflow. Yesterday, they bought another today for 15 hours. Basically, it was yesterday in the US. $13.5 million worth of Ethereum. That's also super bullish in that regard. But why am I still short? And on the daily chart, we still have this divergence, and I don't want to ignore it. Where do we see that? Here is our daily chart. Now we're just looking at this small divergence, exactly this line going upwards here. We still haven't managed to break it so far, but we still have this falling RSI. Today will also determine whether we close above this level on the RSI or get a rejection, because the RSI only shows its final position at the daily close and tells us where we stand. Because in yesterday's video, I also talked about the possibility that even though we are down here, we could go up again, maybe get rejected and then continue downward with the RSI doing something similar here. But we will only actually see that at the daily close. Now, as I told you, I want to show you where can the price go. Let's take the Fibonacci from the last all-time high to the last all-time low in the previous cycle. Of course, it looks a bit strange now because, okay, we don't have any way to display anything here. But actually we do, because you can also use the Fibonacci with an extension that is extended. We simply enter all the higher numbers there, and you'll soon see where our next possible price target is, and what would even perfectly match what I said in my last videos. Because, and these are no coincidences, that when we break these new highs here, what we have in there, so that we can gladly switch to a smaller time frame, and now you can clearly see how the Fibonacci 1.6, 1.8, this point in time, how strongly it acts as support here. And these are the Fibonacci extensions that you can of course also include for yourself. Again, just so you can see it, when you click on the Fibonacci tool and then go into the settings, you have several options here to add something. And you can see that even though we took this from the previous cycle and are now including it, you can see how strongly it is actually starting to work here and is serving as support for us. And of course, it would be ideal if we could continue to hold this as support. We've also seen this in the past. If you look here, yes, you can see how important this zone was, where we had both support and resistance. And it's the same with the lower level here. Very, very similar. Yes. And if we look in here now, we have the next Fibonacci level. A very, very interesting one would be the 2.0 at 123,503. And now I'll show you something else. Now, I've already mentioned in my videos that we had a massive bearish divergence here, or still have after this correction. Now I just need to quickly add the RSI in here. And if we look at what happened here, yes, after this divergence on the weekly chart, this is exactly how it was. we had this correction, and that was our divergence down there. I've mentioned this several times now, and it wouldn't surprise me, kind of like a long-term theory, if we say, okay, the RSI continues to climb up here. The price keeps pumping roughly up to this divergence up here. And that would get really interesting if this actually happens. If we really do get another breakout to the upside, right into this level, which would also be our new resistance from the upward trend. Key? That would mean the RSI down here would do something similar and find new resistance here as well. And that would also be the point where I would sell again. Why do I say again? Because by now I've already taken 70,000 out of Bitcoin. I also want to make a video about that. A lot of people will now say, hey, that's wrong. We're going to go so much higher. But it's never wrong to take profits. Back when Bitcoin was at $3,800, I bought in and I never cashed out, even though it went way up, then down again, then up again, and down again. And I won't make these mistakes anymore, but I will gradually begin to realize. No matter where Bitcoin goes, I'll keep a few of my Bitcoins, but taking some profits will never be wrong. And I want to talk with you about this in more detail in one of the next videos. Because I have many colleagues who ride the highs but never sell, and then they start over again and say they have no luck with crypto. Because realizing profits in crypto isn't about luck, it's about dealing with greed. How much can I get out of it? If we take a quick look at Bitcoin on the daily chart with indicators, the MACD currently doesn't really know what to do. You can see this strong consolidation between bullish and bearish momentum. Even the MACD's moving average lines don't know what to do right now, but they're absolutely moving sideways. If we look at this on the weekly chart, why it could be more bullish, I would still be in favor of a correction simply to grab this liquidity down here. It would, of course, be super interesting. But let's take a look at the weekly chart. And guys, what I'm showing you here on the weekly chart actually looks brutally bullish. Take a look at this. On the weekly chart, after this big candle here, the MACD had a confirmed crossover to the upside. If we look at the past, every time the MACD did this, shifting from bearish to bullish momentum with a completed crossover, what happened? It broke out bullish to the upside and above the zero line. Mind you, always above the zero line. And here too, we had exactly the same thing. I have to zoom out a bit more for that as well. That means here we had the confirmed bullish crossover. And what happened? Bitcoin continued to rise, and after that, it even went parabolic. But also in the past here, from bearish momentum to bullish momentum. There was a crossover here. However, that time there was a correction first before it continued upward. But here too, in the past, bullish momentum and Bitcoin shot up. What we haven't had yet in the weekly chart, and I think this only happened in 2013, we have with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if this week also closes bullish, 7 bullish weekly candles in a row without any significant correction that was truly meaningful. We actually haven't seen it like this before. If you look everywhere, there was either consolidation, and even if we add these up here, there weren't more than 7 candles. In this case as well, it was exactly 7 candles. But when was the last time there were candles than that? That was actually in the year, we're not even that far yet. You'd have to look at the index for that. That was in the year 2013. After 7 candles at the latest, there was always some kind of correction. And we'll see if that's going to happen again now. And finally, Ethereum. After a small dump down to this key level, Ethereum has now recovered, including from yesterday's dump. That was also the short position I had open. I then closed it in profit with a stop loss in profit. It's currently testing again so that there can be a recovery here. Even with companies, all the trading bots are actually in profit at the moment, including the new one I just started. It was only briefly in the red. So that looks very good, and everything else is still running exactly as it should. These trading bots are just incredible. I'm going to gradually increase them again now. Also, if you look, my Ethereum 1x long position now has over $4,000 in profit again. The Bitcoin position is now a bit over $600, and the 100x position has gone back up from 1,800% to 2,400%. Here too, a bit has been accumulated. With the remaining margin of $54, which is still in there, just $350, it's not a large bit position. I've already taken some profits. But of course, it's ideal when you can generate these kinds of profits with such a small margin. It's not super interesting right now, but still nice to look at. And I want to show you how I gradually scale this with 100x. So you have an example here. I'll make a special video about it again the next time I scale up. But as for FIREM itself, we're not doing anything else except that we're actually continuing to move within these 0.382 and 0.5 levels, which are also the 2 key levels. If you look closely, it's just a bit below that, and we're bouncing up and down here. And I said with FIREM, it would actually be interesting. If we find a bit of consolidation here, and then have a massive breakout that takes us up to the 0.68 or 0.65, exactly to this level. Because with Ethereum, especially on the daily chart, we can see that the RSI was already very overbought, and a consolidation in this case could now push the RSI nicely down, so that afterwards we can have a massive bullish rise. Because the MACD also seems to be a bit undecided at the moment. He doesn't really know whether he should cross down and maybe recover a bit. That can happen exactly with this consolidation, and then we would have momentum to the upside again. And if that happens, I would also be ready to continue scaling into Ethereum. Other than that, there's not much to say today. Keep your fingers crossed for the market opening, maybe for an all-time high. But right now, I see Bitcoin continuing to correct a bit. So it didn't really like this new high we had just now. This resistance is still present. We'll see how things develop. A few lower prices aren't that bad either. We'll see each other again in the next video. Leave a like, drop a comment, and see you next time.